There's a strange rule about money that most people don't talk about. The less you look like you have it, the easier it becomes to keep it. Not because you're hiding in fear, but because you're protecting what you've built. In a world where attention is expensive and assumptions are dangerous, there's power in being underestimated. Looking poor, even when you're not, is one of the smartest plays you can make. And it has nothing to do with being broke. That's why some of the wealthiest people you'll ever meet look average, quiet, even broke by some standards. So let's talk about why this matters more than ever, and why dressing down, keeping it low-key, and letting people underestimate you might be the best financial move you'll ever make. The moment people think you have money, everything starts to change. The expectations get louder. Friends begin to ask for favors. Relatives assume you'll pitch in more. You start getting invited into conversations where you're supposed to spend just to prove something. Even your regular habits, like shopping at your local store, get affected. You're treated differently. People assume you can pay more, so they charge more. You're seen as a resource, not a person. Now imagine moving through the same world, looking like everyone else. Simple clothes, normal phone, no fancy talk. Suddenly you're invisible. And in the best way, no pressure, no performance, no silent competition. You're not looked at like a wallet, you're just left alone to live your life. And that space allows you to think clearly and build quietly. Here's something most people miss. Once you look like you have money, the price of life increases. Not just literally, but socially and mentally. People start expecting things from you. They feel entitled to your generosity. You lose the ability to just exist without being asked for something. But when you look poor, or at least average, nobody notices. You don't get caught in the cycle of always proving you're doing well. You stay in control. Think about walking into a store wearing designer shoes and holding the latest phone. People start watching you differently. The prices don't budge. The attitude changes. Now, walk in wearing a hoodie and shoes from last year, and suddenly, you're just another customer. That's the game. And the wealthy understand it better than anyone. The benefit of looking poor is that it keeps you out of the noise. You're not being compared. You're not in silent competition with your peers. You don't need to match anyone's lifestyle. You can focus on your own lane, your own plan, at your own pace. And that freedom, it's what gives you real momentum. You can build new skills, save quietly, try new things, even fail without an audience. You can disappear for a season, focus on your growth, and come back stronger without anyone saying, "What happened to you?" Looking average gives you breathing room. And in that room, you build wealth that no one sees coming. The people who spend the most time looking rich are often the ones trying the hardest to convince others. But the people who are rich, they don't need to. They're too busy actually living it. They're shopping at regular stores, wearing the same jacket for years, and eating at quiet places. Not because they're cheap, but because they don't need the performance. If you earn a good salary, it's easy to upgrade everything: your apartment, your clothes, your lifestyle. But what happens if you don't? What if you keep everything exactly the same, even as your income grows? Now you've created a surplus. That surplus becomes savings. That savings becomes investments. That's how you buy freedom. And when you don't look like you have money, no one bothers you about how you spend it. You get to grow without being questioned. You don't have to justify why you're driving a modest car or living in a quiet neighborhood. You just do your thing without judgment. Let's bring it even closer to real life. You're out at dinner with friends. They're ordering extras. Fancy drinks, desserts. You can afford to join in, but instead you choose something simple. Not because you're struggling, but because you're disciplined. That choice protects your future. It saves energy, it shows control. And while it might go unnoticed by others, it builds something solid inside you. Same with clothes. You could easily spend $200 on trending sneakers, but if you ask yourself, do I need this, or do I just want to feel seen? You begin to spend with purpose. That $200 could buy stock, a course, a piece of peace, something that grows instead of fades. And here's the thing, when you look poor, you avoid certain doors. You avoid the ones that lead to constant expectations, endless lending, and always being the person who has it together. You keep things simple. You stay light. You don't get caught in the trap of being everyone's answer. Even in business or at work, this matters. The person who doesn't show off often gets taken more seriously. They're not seen as flashy or arrogant. They're respected for what they do, not what they wear. And that respect opens better doors than showing off ever could. Looking poor also keeps your curiosity alive. When you're not trying to protect an image, you have room to learn. You can admit you don't know everything. You can read, ask questions, improve. You stay a student of the game, and that's how you keep winning. Wealth isn't just numbers in a bank. It's knowing you don't owe anyone a performance. It's choosing what to ignore, what to delay, and what to say no to. And sometimes the smartest yes is to a quiet, normal life that doesn't attract attention. People might look at you funny when you don't upgrade your phone every year, or when you wear the same coat for 3 winters in a row. They might assume you're behind. Let them, because while they're watching your surface, you're building a foundation. Looking poor doesn't mean being ashamed. It doesn't mean lacking pride. It means understanding what really matters. It means choosing peace over pressure, value over vanity, substance over style. In a world obsessed with appearance, it's a quiet decision to focus on what's real, not what's just for show. You're not avoiding wealth. You're just redefining what it looks like. You're building something steady, not showy. You're choosing delayed gratification over instant approval. And every time you skip the temptation to prove yourself, you gain a little more control over your life. That's power most people never taste. Because at the end of the day, real wealth is freedom. Freedom to make your own choices. Freedom to say no to what doesn't align. Freedom to not care what other people think, because you're secure in who you are. You're not living for likes, you're living for legacy. And that kind of wealth, it doesn't need to be broadcast. It shows up in quieter ways, in how calm your home feels, in how you handle emergencies without panic, in how you protect your energy, your time, and your money without asking anyone for permission, in how you're able to live on less, not because you have to, but because you've trained yourself to. Some people spend their whole lives chasing a version of success they don't even understand. They buy things to look rich and end up stuck. But when you look poor on purpose, you take yourself out of that race. You stop chasing and start choosing. You build habits that keep you grounded. You build a life that doesn't need performance. And you build the kind of future that doesn't collapse when no one's watching. You don't need applause to keep going. You don't need fancy clothes to feel valuable. You don't need to constantly explain yourself. Looking poor means you've let go of needing recognition. You're not behind. You're just focused. You're not lost. You're just quiet. And while the world might overlook you today, they won't be able to ignore the results later. Because the richest life is the one that gives you peace, time, and options, not the one that just looks expensive on the outside. So keep your head down, keep your lifestyle simple, keep your progress private, and keep your money working behind the scenes. Let others chase attention. You're busy building freedom. Because in the end, it's not about how things look. It's about how they feel. It's about waking up without financial anxiety. It's about knowing you have room to breathe, space to think, and the quiet confidence that comes from making wise decisions over time. That's not something money can flash. It's something only discipline can create, and it starts with the courage to look like less while becoming so much more, quietly, deeply, and with purpose. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more.